Okay, welcome back, folks. Sorry about the technical glitch there. For some reason, our Inworld signal stopped and got replaced by another.
Okay, well, I hear sound now.
Hello. Oh, we are having fun here, aren't we?
Aren't
right.
we now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Let's start over.
Welcome. Yes, let's start over indeed. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to take this from the top again. There's some typing going on in the background now, but we had a technical glitch there, and we lost the in-world signal. So I'm going to start all over again here and pretend we just started. And this is the way it will appear in the replay. I hope. And everything's recording perfectly, and hopefully clips won't actually start coming in of their own accord, which is what happened just now. Anyway, welcome to the Inworld Review, your weekly sort of chat and discussion about all things sort of metaversal and especially Second Life, of course, where we film this. We are actually filming from Chilbo in Second Life, and amongst the intro clips we showed on the channel before this segment began, we had a new clip from Drastic Dupre, which featured Ngrammer, the musicians, and Caucusman in chat here has kindly just pointed out and reminded me that Ngrammer, one of their first ever gigs in World, was right here at Chilbo, where we're broadcasting from. So yay for Chilbo there. Directly before we came on air, of course, we had a sort of a history of the Space Flight Museum in Second Life. It's quite long, it's about 9 or 10 minutes, but it was sort of a complete history of the Space Flight Museum, which is one of those things in Second Life that's almost an institution. It has single-handedly been responsible for bringing a lot of people into Second Life, just the sort of virtual museum of spaceflight. We had a trailer for Cloud Party, which of course used to be, it's a virtual world that plugs in and can be used on the web as opposed to a standalone environment. It used to be linked to Facebook, but these days it's more open and you can actually log in and get an avatar without going via Facebook, which for some people is a great relief indeed. Talking of Drastic Dupre, he appeared last week, just over a week ago, in fact, at the Non-Profit Commons, who every Friday they have some very interesting meetings. Unfortunately, they're held in text. In fact, the subjects tend to be the kind of thing that would lend themselves to filming perfectly, but because they hold them in text, there's no real record except for transcripts. But this was just a 5-minute piece somebody put together, featuring the talk and Dragster. There's been a lot of media coverage recently about weight loss in Second Life. If that sounds rather funny, the main premise is that you idolize yourself a bit through your avatar, and many people will create an avatar that is, say, somewhat more shapely than their organic self. And the suggestion is that one gets used to this shapely avatar form and sort of disciplines one's body to adopt a similar physique, as it were. This is the exact opposite argument from the people that talk about video game addicts who never get out of their seats and stuff them mouth with junk food every second of the day. It's swings and roundabouts. It's all down to the individual person at the end of the day. But it's very easy to see a sort of psychological parallel between your avatar looking good and then making yourself want to look more like your avatar, as opposed to some of us who tend to do it the other way around. There was a short clip about that from Mashable, the very good company, originated in Britain, but they're a big international company now. We had a little demonstration of the Oculus Rift device, and I have a feeling Tara will be telling us more about that shortly. We had a look at the Unreal Engine, an instance of it actually running in Firefox on the web. The environment they showed is identical to an iPad app I've actually used. It's a wonderfully graphically rich, immersive 3D environment, but after 2 or 3 hours of wandering around, the novelty wears off. There's nothing you can actually do in there. But I would say it's a virtual space, very successful. It just needs more things to do after you've sort of walked the hell out of every every side street you can get up. We also saw a short clip from High Fidelity, which is Rosedale's new project, I should say, and it was all to do with avatars holding hands. It didn't really tell us much more than that, but I know that Philip has always said one of the faults in Second Life was that there was such a fixed limitation of joints in Second Life avatars, and from what I could see there, that you actually had the connection points of two avatars joining so they could hold hands. All very fascinating, but obviously in very primitive stages there, but interesting to see. We're watching that. And the clip that followed that actually was quite interestingly also about avatars getting close, or actually organic people getting close remotely. We all know Durex, they specialise in really one kind of clothing, really, sexual clothing, and they've launched Thunderwear. That is as in fun to wear as opposed to thunder or anything like that. And basically, the idea is to use your mobile phone or presumably your computer too or whatever to, ring somebody with whom you want to be close, I suppose. And they can basically, they get a little keypad showing your body, and they can actually touch the various parts of your body that the underwear is on. There's a lower half for men and there's a two-parter for women. And I can really actually see that taking off. Sex sells, and it's normally one of the first things you find in any developing medium. You've only got to look at Second Life and all the stories, about it, or videotape when it first started. It was the sex industry that pioneered it in many ways. But yes, it looks quite interesting. Now, speaking as a man, I'm not actually sure I'd want to walk down the street wearing a pair of those underpants on the chance that somebody would call me and start touching. But enough said about that. I'm sure this will be great fun for discussion. And we started the show, incidentally, with the wonderful Pet Love Pet Shop, who films us and is also here to chat later today. The first episode of Tiny Adventures. This is a kind of machinima history of the Tinies. And those who know this show well know that whenever there's a Tinies clip around, we normally start the show with it just to lighten the atmosphere, so to speak. So we got our Tinies in this week, but it was actually the first part of a continuing adventure, which I'm sure we will hear about as the show progresses. Anyway, enough about the intro clips, so to speak, and I can now just scan my little list on the other screen here to see what I've been twittering this week. I, of course, can never remember these things, but if I bring up my Twitter feed, magic happens. I can remember what I twittered. I can remember most of it anyway. Inworld, which is a walled garden operating on the OpenSim code, it's rather like Second Life. In other words, it's a sort of exclusive environment, but it's attracted many Second Life residents. It's cheaper to own land. You get a hell of a lot more prims, so artists and builders love it. They have hit the 75,000 total users milestone. And I don't actually keep an eye a great deal on how many users are online when I log into Second Life, but of the time when I did, 75,000 is sort of about the number of average sort of number of people that tend to be online in Second Life worldwide at any given time. It fluctuates at times of day, etc., and what parts of the world people are in. But for Inworld to actually reach that milestone is, I think, significant. Obviously, not all 75,000 are online at the same time there, but the fact that they actually have a total number of users up to that figure, I think, is very commendable. There was an article in principally a second live blog called The Poultry Report this week, asking is it time to rethink everything? And this, I haven't actually opened the link for various reasons here, but it's well worth looking up. I guess if you Google Poultry Report, it's basically saying where do things go from here, not just in terms of Second Life, but other metaverses and worlds within worlds. It's tackling tech stuff, but it's written in very much layman's language. So I think you enjoy reading that. Now, the Virtual World's Best Practices Conference, which will be happening in Inworld here in, towards the end of July. It's the weekend after the big RFL Telethon. Well, I actually had a back channel talk with them yesterday about lots of broadcasting technicalities and stuff like that. But I can tell you two things. If you go to t.co/IZ, both lowercase, BEP, uppercase, HP, lowercase, QSO, uppercase, that will take you to an Indiegogo.com site. This is something, of course, we mentioned with Chantal when we were talking about Bubblegins last week. It's a sort of fundraising site, and basically registration and sponsorship has been shifted to that Indiegogo site as they are searching for sponsors and supporters for the event. It promises to be a very good event. It will, as usual, be based in Second Life to a greater or lesser extent, depending on how many sims are available. Some of it will also be at Rockcliffe's Estates on Jacadia. Some of it, I believe, will be from Cloud Party, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, and some of it will be using Unity 3D. And the likelihood is that the Cloud Party and Unity things will be projected into Second Life. So you'll have this curious thing of a world on a screen within a world. So you can sort of sit and do nothing in Second Life, and you can move your mouse around the screen to interact with another virtual world while you're sitting and doing nothing. A sort of strange situation to be in, really, but conferences tend to be like this, and they never go to time or according to plan, but we do our best to cope with those. So that will be coming up late in July. But if you're interested in sponsoring or registering in advance, do check out that link. What else do we have here? An article by... Okay, there's been an article this week on video games versus depression, and showing that participation in video games, especially the communication side, working or playing with other people, can actually cure many of the symptoms of depression, so that maybe people don't need to be fed so many antipsychotic drugs or whatever. So I think that's probably it for the highlights and news. Oh, I should add that last week, of course, we recorded in advance the interview with Chantal and the team, Tony Dyson and Slimmy and the team from Bobbikins. It actually finally rendered here at Livestream about 30 seconds after the show finished. So if you were here at the end of the show, you then actually did get to see it after all. We've now replaced it, incidentally, with a completely new edit. So there's sort of two edits available, really. But Chantal basically overworked a lot of extra graphics for our audio interview and Petler's footage. And there's a second version of that available. And I have to say that I was talking to Chantal literally minutes after I posted it up on YouTube, and she got 2 sales within the first half hour. So I think that is good news. That's what you call video. People taking notes of video. Right. So where are we? I'm just going to back chat here. I said something again, did I? Oh, well, never mind. Right. Okay. I think that's it. I think that's it for me for the moment. And it's time to swap over to Tara, my partner, who's sitting right next to me here for her take on the week. So welcome, Tara.
Thank you, Mel, and greetings from the Pacific Northwest, where we are in the middle of weather that we normally don't see until about July. It is sunny. It's supposed to be hitting 80 degrees or so today, which is just amazing. Don't tell anyone. This is quite contrary to the the fact that we really try to convince the world that the Pacific Northwest has 2 seasons, the rainy season and July. And so this is only May. So anyway, we're certainly enjoying it. It's great to be outside, which of course means that doing things inside is less interesting because it's so nice outside. Anyhow, Mel mentioned that I might have something more to say about the Oculus Rift, and indeed I do, although this is going to be strictly in the teaser department. I did sign up for the Kickstarter fundraising for dev kits, and my dev kit arrived a couple days ago. I unpacked the box, and the real hit of this so far was the cat, the RL Sim cat, who, as soon as I set the box down, was in it. He didn't waste a minute. I mean, I was standing on its end. He knocked it over and climbed inside and settled in for a nice nap. Now, I have unpacked it. I've looked at all the devices. I've put the headset on, and I haven't plugged anything in yet, and I've got to wade into a bunch of setup and downloads and one thing and another to do all that. But just putting the headset on, I have to report that reports that the headset is quite light are obviously based on some different reality than the one I live in. My first reaction when I put the headset on was, wow, this is really heavy. It's not like wearing a pair of earphones. It's much heavier. In its present state, it is significantly heavier than that. If I leaned my head back on the back of the chair, it was fine. But it definitely felt weighty. The other thing is the front of your face is all enclosed with, this, because this kind of wraps around. And I also had the distinct sense that in spite of some ventilation around on the edges, that it was going to get rather toasty inside, especially if you're in a warm spot. So those are a couple bits of reality check just without even plugging anything in about the Oculus Rift. But all that aside, as was reported in Hamlet's blog, there have already been some official Second Life testing going on. They got their dev kit, and apparently several people, they've probably been lined up at the lab fiddling with it. So stay tuned. There'll be lots more on this, but I would say that it's going to be a while. So I would say don't hold your breath on being able to run out and buy one off the shelf and plug it in and experience any virtual environment with them just yet. It'll be a while. That's why this is a dev kit. So that's probably something else that's worthwhile to keep in mind. Now, I should, of course, introduce my friend. I have a friend sitting on my shoulder, and this little guy, this is a kitty cat's shoulder pet, and this is a special kitty cat shoulder pet that is free at the Sand and Sea Expo, which ends today. So if you want your own surfer kitty, you can rush over to Secluded Falls is the sim. Look for the kitty cat's display, and what you want to look for, there is a pink snail shell that is the prize, and if you're fortunate, when you click on it, you'll get the prize. Now, some things you click on the shell and it says, sorry, try again in 2 hours. So there's a bit of a crapshoot involved in whether or not you get the prize the first time you try. I was successful with the kitty cat, much to my delight. So this is a surfer kitty cat. You can't quite see it on the screen, but he's kicking up some spray when you walk around, which is kind of cute. So he's got some little particle effects going with him. Let's see. Let me run this one by before I move back over to a couple of interesting things. Andy Evans, Andy Mallon in Real World, has been running an Inworld survey organization for 5 years, 6 years, and these are surveys that are paid. Basically, these are intended to be marketing surveys of various kinds, but have also been used by a variety of nonprofit organizations when they're interested in doing something that's got some control on participation and potentially some filtering for particular particular audiences. And they are currently looking for participants in a survey that pays 500 lindens. That's the other nice thing about his stuff. This is a project for the University of Arkansas in the U.S. And the results of the survey will help to determine how college students evaluate their professors on measures of competence, legitimacy, and interpersonal skills. There's one requirement, and that is you must be a current or former college student in the last 20 years. So if you fit that description, then for details, the website to go to sign up is socialresearchfoundation.org. Social Research Foundation, all run together, one word, .org/survey.html. Or if that's too much to manage, look for Andy Evans Inworld and send him an IM, and I'm sure he'll be happy to send you the note card. So consider yourself notified on that one. Okay, the Eat Your Vegetables segment. This is where we start talking geek. Fairly short this week, and that is there is a new process that Linden Lab has announced for viewer releases, which I think is kind of interesting. Historically, the lab has been set up so that when they have a beta viewer, there's only one beta viewer available. And apparently what has been happening, particularly more recently, is that they've ended up with a bunch of planes circling the field waiting to get into the beta viewer. And like airplanes trying to land at an airport when they stack them up and you see them circling if you happen to live close by. Anyhow, unlike the servers where they have these parts of the grid where they roll out test things when they're ready to get to that point. So what they're doing is they're shifting. There will now be more than one beta viewer, but they'll be specific to a particular project that's ready to test. So there could be multiple project viewers, which are the early runs, the alpha, very early stuff, and beta project viewers. And so one of the things that I like about this as a concept is that it gives you the opportunity. There may be 2 or 3 beta viewers going on. You can pick the one that matches up with what you're particularly interested in seeing how it's doing, or you want to try out early. So watch for this. There is always the risk that with beta viewers, a lot of times people, they'll run a beta viewer, but they'll also keep the main viewer on, or they may want to try a couple of different ones. And in general, that's been okay, but there has been the experience of a beta viewer using code that did not play nicely with the current release viewer and resulted, for example, with a 3.5 beta viewer caused all the toolbar buttons to vanish when you then switched back to the main release viewer, which was 3.4 code. So anyway, I think this sounds to me like a very good move on their part. Their anticipation is it's going to enable them to roll stuff out faster as far as viewer updates and new features and viewers. So watch for that. Fascinating article, a couple of fascinating kind of mainstream things that I ran across this week. First off, an interview that appeared in Forbes with Jackie Morey, who's a virtual world designer in telehealth care. She's a senior scientist and project director for the University of Southern California Institute for Creative Technologies. And what brought me up short was one line quote from her, which she said, "Virtual worlds can give us social connectivity, built-in support groups, and ways to avoid ever being alone again." And it was that last phrase, it made me flinch, and it was rather interesting to consider my reaction. Because to say "and ways to avoid ever being alone again" to an introvert is cause for panic. because, hey, us introverts actually like being alone. We have a high tolerance for our own company. So it was one of those things that made me continue reading. But there was another point that she made that I thought was quite interesting that I'd certainly never thought of before. And she says there's fundamentally a positive aspect to this kind of connectedness we have not yet leveraged to the extent we can, but children are already figuring it out. And she goes on to say there are about 2 billion accounts registered for the 100 or so virtual worlds in use today, and children 5 to 15 own at least half of those accounts. But the point that got me was the business of what she calls roaming radius. In the physical world right now, the roaming radius we grant to children has shrunk to less than a block. In the 50s, you played with everyone on your street. Now the only chance kids have for free exploration without a parent hanging around is in these virtual worlds. And I thought about that, and I said, I'd never thought about that before, because certainly when I was growing up, I remember I played with kids who were, a block, 2 blocks in either direction, and I walked to and from school, which was quite a few blocks. Well, kids don't do that anymore. So it was an interesting head wrap to consider the fact that because kids don't have that ability to go outside and play with their neighbor kids from around the block like they used to because of safety concerns, and more things like predators than necessarily kids. Kids fall out of trees. Well, that's always been happening. But that the virtual environment does offer them the kind of socializing that they would be getting otherwise, or that we used to get from playing with the neighbor kids. Anyway, interesting point, and an interesting article. And the other interesting article was reporting on a study by researchers at the University of Michigan and Penn State. This is yet another study on this whole business of immersion and the area that Mal referred to, or the video referred to, as far as virtual environments, using virtual environments for support groups and what have you, connected with weight loss. This was, I would say, kind of more fundamental research than looking at a specific example like that, talking about the degree to which we experience bodily things that as we would experience them in the real world, and they turned up a couple of very interesting things here that were new to me. One is that they discovered that if people don't have the ability to customize their avatar in these experiences, that really limits and in fact can inhibit the degree to which people experience things in a virtual environment physically. But if people can customize their avatars, then as their avatar experiences things, they have physical reactions that mimic, what they would experience in the real world. This is one that's always hard to describe. You do something in a virtual environment, and your physical body experiences it. So the piece of it here is, if you can customize your avatar, then that impacts on that. The second piece of this is talking about how, as a perception thing, when we are, let's say you're going to go backpacking, and how you personally experience, how your body reacts to the image of climbing a hill versus how it actually feels to climb the hill. Those things match up quite well. But if you take that same scenario and move it in world, imagining an avatar moving up a hill does not have the same physical effect. But what they found is that if you've observed somebody walking up the hill and imagine what it's like, and then see an avatar doing it, or have your avatar walk up a hill, then your avatar reacts. then your avatar gives you, then your physical body reacts as your avatar is doing things. And they've come up with a concept that they're calling mirror neurons, recently discovered neurons in our brain that react the same way to watching someone else experience something as they do when we experience those things ourselves. So an interesting tie-ins there. This article is an article called, yes, We Are Avatars, Our Online Psyches Are Leaking into Meat Space. And it's motherboard.vice.com is the website for that one. So a very intriguing reading for those who are interested in following those virtual environments, physical environment connections, and ways that those environments can influence our selves as well as our avatars. And I think that's it for me for now. Back to you, Mel.
Well, thank you, Tyler. It was so much fascinating stuff there. Great food for thought and discussion, maybe in a short while. So yes, it is actually a holiday here in the UK where I am, and we are told, this is in response to your weather reports, of course, we are told that tomorrow we're going to be hotter in the UK here than in the Mediterranean places. So winter has finally gone, maybe. Anyway. That's great. I think it's time we now went over to some of our guests. I'll just tell you who we got here first and welcome them. And first off, of course, we got Safia. Hi, Safia. Or maybe we don't have Safia.
You do now. Hello, Mal. Hi.
Hi, Safia. I guess it was what we called the mute button.
It was the mute button, yes. And I was flailing to find it, but I found it finally. Hi.
Okay, great. Well, I'll come to you in just a sec, but I might as well introduce our other guests while I'm at it. We're joined once again by Eonox Eon, or Will Burns as I call him, because it's a namesake and it's easier. Hi, Will.
Dude, you can never get my name right, can you?
No, I can't.
The pronunciation's in my profile. I actually spelled it out phonetically because of you, Mal.
Oh, okay.
It says Aonix Aeon.
Aeonix.
But it's great to be on the show again. Now that I got my microphone working, right?
Yes, I know you're coming across loud and clear today, which is great technological improvements. And we've actually had I think there's got enough thought. I'm going to come back to you in a while and sort of get your thoughts on some of that technology we were talking about and some of the clips we showed for the show. So I will do that in a minute. Finally, we've got Pet Love Pet Shop here, who of course is a wonderful camera person and also great fun to have on the show as well. So welcome, Pet Love.
Hi, thanks again.
And I'll be, as I mentioned earlier, we opened the show on the web with Pet Love's first installment of Tiny Adventures. So we'll be coming back to Pet Love to talk about that, amongst other things, in a short while. But first of all, I'm going to come back to Safia, because Safia always has this wonderful roundup of events and things to tell us about. And I'm sure it's no different today. Is it, Safia?
Well, I hope not, Mal. What I can tell you about today is very sort of mixed feelings, sad and happy. Fantasy Fair has closed, and that is sad because it was so beautiful. I was actually sitting on The Sims as they were starting to pack them up. I had to go. I just couldn't bear to see all those beautiful buildings taken down. But although it's closed, there's one of the Sims is still open, and that's the Valley of Ishnar, and the hunt, part 2 of the hunt, has opened. If you were at the fair and you did the first part of the hunt successfully, completed it, you will have got a free entry to the second part of the hunt. You can go to the Valley of Ishnar, click on that first HUD, and you will get the second HUD free. But even if you didn't do that, you can still go there to the valley make a donation of 150 lindens to Relay for Life, and you will get the second HUD, and you can start the second part of the hunt.
Oh, that is good news for because doing the first part with the lag and things like that was not always manageable. So that's great. People can just come back and do part 2 on its own right.
That's right. For a very low sum of money, considering if you complete the second part successfully, you get at least 50 gifts. I mean, awesome. And it is, of course, a Mad Pea hunt, but written by David Abbott, writer of Black and Mirror, and the sim is designed by Ryn Veerwood, who's a great designer. So it's like tick, 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 all the boxes.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's actually the sort of money, Mad Pea normally charge for a hunt. And, you come away, they are fun to do, and you come away with really classy stuff. So you really feel it's been worthwhile when you've done it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I did the Inca hunt yesterday, and gosh, that is so good.
You did it in a day?
Standard, the quality. I had a little help.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a little help if you're in a hurry, isn't it?
Yeah. I have to confess, I'm not that good at hunting, and some of it was really tricky. I mean, there was one bit where you had to jump on something and then run along it, and it took me 4 or 5 times. I did die. I mean, even with help, I died about 3 times. No, 5 times. Yeah. So, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough hunt. Have you finished it?
No. I unfortunately that's one of the ones. In fact, the Inca one I have never started. I mean to go. Tara and I are the same. We often do this together, and it's a matter of finding the time. You go over there, you get the HUD, and then we're off. But somehow the point in time where you tip you over there to get the HUD and start is the thing that never seems to fit in. But yes, I must do. They can be really challenging, those ones, I've got to admit. So a lot of it is down to how much time there is, I've got available for it.
I really feel that they are pushing the limits of Second Life technology. They really lifted it to a new level. It's impressive. I mean, even something like one of the puzzles where you have to move things around, it's a simple puzzle, but when you think of the amount of work and scripting that's gone into that, just mind-blowing.
Wonderful. It's funny, I remember the first time I came across them, I forget what the game was called now, but back in the days when Orange had Orange Island,
I remember.
They held a lot of wonderful community events there, and sadly Orange dropped the funding for that. But they had a resident game there, which at the time everybody was talking about because they'd never seen anything quite like it inside the Inworld environment. And they've just gone from strength to strength now, I think.
I think so. Yes.
They also have a group in World that I seem to be a member of at the moment, and the IM window of discussion never stops. So they've got a lot of fans, I can tell you that. Great. Anything else? You will, of course, have. Is it? Yes, we're part 2 of the Designing World special.
Yes, part 2 of our visit to Fantasy Fair, and again. Stunning show, do catch it. I think you'll love it. It's we look around some of the areas, talk to designers like Carl Matzerath. We look at Fantasy Fair Radio, which was on a beautiful boat designed by Ryn Veerwood again. I have a chat with Marcus Inkpen, and we actually explore the Adventurers Club. The Explorers Club, which of course Pet made a good video of.
Yes, we showed that a couple of weeks back, didn't we?
That's right.
Yeah.
And yes, Elric gets to talk to Martini. Of course, we relaunched Quest for the Golden Prem last weekend, as I think I told you on last week's show. Episode 2 has gone live today.
Oh, right. Okay, I haven't caught that yet, but.
Something else to mention in connection with the Fantasy Fair. I was having a chat towards the end of the fair with Xander and came up with an idea. We have set up a short story competition. For people to write stories inspired by the fantasy fair. We'll publish them in Prim Perfect, the winning entries. So we're going to have a short story competition. People should write stories 1 to 3,000 words inspired by something at fantasy fair. You know, one of the Sims, maybe more of them. Maybe they'll spin a fantasy story about several of them. But you know, we just thought, because people love them so much, there are so many gorgeous pictures out there to help inspire you. So that you could write.
I must say, looking through the picture feeds every day, I mean, it has been non-stop fantasy fair. A bit like the blogs were last week. Well, this week too, actually. It's just captivates everybody from the fashionistas through to the, destination and arts people. And, one of the clips that will have been immediately following the Inworld review section of the main show is we got the first of it. It's from Titan's Hollow to I can't see the whole of the title, to Fairlands Junction, those two Sims. It's the first of a series of retrospectives just on each of the Sims. So we'll be
great. Who's made that?
I can't. I haven't got the credit in front of me. It's he or she. I have to say I don't know that either. Does some every year. I think it's Martinek or something. They every year they did the same last year. They just did a sort of one sim at a time retrospective. After the thing was over, obviously they take their time editing it and putting it together. So we got the first of those to show afterwards. It's just a nice sort of floating recollection of everything that was. Talking of competitions, of course, I don't want to hijack at your chain of thought, but we have a photo competition for the this is for the birthday celebration.
Yes, we're going to be launching news of that today. I don't think it's gone out on the blog yet, but it will be going out there shortly. And it's a photo competition. The theme of SL10B this year is looking forward, looking back, or looking back, looking forward. It's one or the other. But we're asking people to take a photograph that in some way reflects this idea of looking forward, looking back. Completely open, whatever they feel represents that theme really well. We're asking them to take a photo and send it to us. You'll find details of how to do that on the SL10B website. Like I said, the full details will be going up shortly.
Great. My interpretation of that is lost in time and lost in space. Totally in the present, actually. Well, between the past and the future. But it's a great, wide-ranging theme. 10 years of history at least, and
we had a discussion. We had a discussion about it and how we were going to tackle it. And we're having two categories. One is for post-processed photos, and one is for non-post-processed photos. Now, actually, the boundaries between the two are becoming slightly more blurred. There are things you can do within Second Life, like using the wonderful photo tools that Firestorm provides, or also there are some lovely HUDs you can wear that give special edges to your photographs, all this sort of thing. But there's also post-processing, obviously using things like paint.net or GIMP or Photoshop. So we've divided them and we said, look, category 1 is non-post-processed photos. Category 2, post-processed photos, letting people choose freely what they want to do, what type of photo they want to send us, and they will be in separate categories, so both will win prizes. The idea of it, there's a group of judges drawn from which we will expand on in more detail who those judges are when we've had a chance to ask everyone, and they've all said yes. But the real judges are going to be members of the public, because the judges will choose the 10 best photos in each category, and they will be displayed at the arrival area for SL10B. And during the first week, people will have a choice to look at those photos and decide which they think is their favourite, and then they can vote for it.
Great. Daniel Voyager has just said in chat, actually, over on the channel, that amazingly, we only have 41 days to go. I was still thinking in terms of the 50 days, but there's so many events coming up this summer that it's one's 40 days away, one's 50 days away, something else is 60,
Coming up even sooner is the Home and Garden Expo.
Indeed.
That's gearing up at the moment, I can tell you.
You did actually on Prim Perfect. You put a blog out. Was it today or yesterday about that? You're looking for. Oh, you're looking for designers
for the talks.
Yeah.
Yes, we have. We always do talks at these events. That's what Prim Perfect does. We've done talks at Home and Garden Expo, Birthday, Christmas Expo. We've got a series of people who work for the magazine, who work for the TV programs, who will act as interviewers or facilitators or whatever's needed. And then the designers and the breedable creators and other people can come along and talk to us. And these talks can be a lot of fun. They're a way for designers and creators to connect with their audience, but they also sometimes are a way for designers to touch base with each other. There was a particularly stunning session at the Christmas Expo where we had mesh designers on the stage, and at one point we had Maxwell Graf, Los Hyde, Cube Republic, and Chris Lehrman were all on stage talking to me about mesh, and basically, and the audience were joining in as well. We had Angie, we had Isla Gerlach in the audience, and so everyone was kind of joining in and asking people things and coming up with ideas to solve problems, and it was just the most brilliant discussion. The only problem was it started at 5 p.m, which is 1 o'clock my time, and at 8 p.m, I just bailed. I had to say, okay, guys, I'm falling asleep. This is absolutely brilliant, but I'm falling asleep. Look, you lock the place up when you go. Put the key through the letterbox. It'll be fine. We're okay. But I'm out of here. And I think they carried on for another hour and a half after I'd gone.
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's something else in the UK you have to put up with, isn't it? It's early hours of the morning, dawn is looming, and the Americans are still chatting away. But when you get into a great discussion like that, you really just don't want to. You just want
to close it off.
Let it roll. I think that it's like on the show. I hope we just ad lib and let it go, and it gets interesting, even if you don't know beforehand why. Yeah. So, something that's actually been mentioned. I've got it on my list to chat about anyway, and I think Pet Love actually mentioned it in the chat a minute ago. Is the Raglandshire Art Walk? Now that is a great fun event.
Yes.
It's these are once again the tinies. These tinies, for those of you who don't know, are sort of diminutive avatars, but I don't wish to diminish them. They are wonderful. They were the security.
Were terrifying. Yeah, they were terrifying at the fair.
But they do this annual thing on their Sims Raglandshire called the Art Walk, and actually this would be an opportune moment to bring Pet Love in, I think, because did you say in chat you went there this morning?
Well, if you count very wee hours of the day as morning, yes, I did. I was there, and it's really, really just wonderful. Everybody should go. There's every possible type of art, real life, Second Life, photographs, sculptures. It covers Raglandshire, and the sculpture portion of the art walk is over on Heronshire, and there are teepee boards everywhere. The organizers, Zane Till, Karma Girl Avro, and Leandris, whose last name I can't think of right now, but they've done an amazing job, along with Till Freenote, who has organized for the past 5 years. herself. The thing has gone on for 7 years. The organizers have really just they outdo themselves every year. You think that it can't get better, and it always does. So yeah, everybody should go. There's some amazing, amazing artwork there.
Great.
On a hedge.
Sorry, on a hedge.
Yes, that's the cry. One of the mighty cries of the mighty tinies. Art on a hedge.
Oh, very good. That's a bit like in London here. I don't know whether they still have it, but just north of Hyde Park, they I think it's on Sundays. The artists occupy the whole railings for a couple of miles. From Notting Hill to
that sounds lovely.
Marble Arch, I guess it's. I guess it's a couple of miles anyway, and you can just. It's quite a long walk if you just want to walk. 3 or 4 tube stations, but all the railings are just packed with paintings.
Nice.
Some people saying their own, some people are dealers, obviously, but it's just a visionary walk, shall we say, as you pass all this art. I must go up there sometime this summer, see if it's still thriving. But yeah, I'll certainly be down to the art wall. But of course, all this, Raglan Shire and the art wall, it's the tinies, isn't it? And I was saying earlier, we opened the show with your first episode of this Tiny Adventures, which is, I gather, going to be a machinima history of the tinies.
That's the idea.
And I'm intrigued because I watched the first episode, and great film, great dialogue. Your voiceover too, which is lovely.
Thank you.
But there were bits of it that was so dark and gloomy, and I thought, what's happening here that is going to lead to me discovering the origin of the tinies? Because there were 2 rather monstrous things fighting away, weren't there? And it's a very non-tiny opening, I think, is what I might say.
Well, it's because as much as it may not seem to be the case, the world is larger than just the tinies' worlds, and the film sort of reflected the fact that there are other creatures and there are dangers, as well as joys, and that is why it might have been a mixed bag for you this time. But you'll see, as time goes on, you will. Well, what it's going to reveal more is going to be the character and the beauty of the inner tiny, as opposed to the more external appearances and so on and so forth.
Oh joy! Yeah, it was the sort of thing. I mean, Tara will tell you, I really hate things with cliffhangers, and I was left at the end of this thinking, what happens next? What happens next? It's all too short.
Well, that's good. Thank you for telling me that, Mal. We've achieved our mission, and I also want to say, Emma Way was a co person with this too. I mean, this is both of our project. It isn't just me. In fact, Emma was supposed to do the narration for that. The version that you have that we actually accidentally released a couple nights ago, it was meant just to be a test. We were just testing the flow of the dialogue against the video. And I accidentally put the URL into Raglan chat, and the cat got out of the bag, so we rolled with it.
I wondered, because I knew it was a test, and I IM'd saying, let's just come on the feeds. Is it public yet? Now we know why.
Yes,
but no,
indeed.
you did a wonder. I thought you did a wonderful voiceover.
Thank you.
It was really, really good.
Yeah, well, we just originally meant for him to do it just because it would be something different to have a male voice. You know what I mean? So many things are narrated by women that just off the top of my head, it seemed to me that it would be nice to have a male voice for a change. And he was going to do it, and we were getting it ready, and then I had it was typical of last week. I just, one thing after another, and that was one of them. I accidentally released Tiny Adventures. But it's all good. We're happy with it.
So any idea when part 2 will be out? He says eagerly.
We're shooting for 1 a month. We're going. We haven't chosen a date, but that's probably the most realistic estimate. It would be nice to do them more quickly, and we may be able to do that a little more quickly. But I think once a month, maybe around the first of the month, we'll shoot for. But we want to do at least 6, maybe more of them. Maybe ongoing forever.
Yeah. Well, get the history bit over with and then project into the future.
Oh, it'll take a long time to get through history, Mal.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was trying to find a way to tie that in with the birthday celebrations, past and future, but never mind.
It will 41 days? Maybe time travel.
Yeah. A long history. I gather actually this year. I don't know. Sapphire probably knows more than me about the birthday builds, and I know the builder's already at work. But I think actually this year there is, talking of time capsules, it returns, doesn't it?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah. Time capsules are great.
I should think so. I don't know for sure, but I would think so. I know we have some plans which I think are amazingly cool for things like the opening ceremony.
Right. Yeah, I vaguely remember the time capsule. I don't think the time capsule was there last year. It was sort of the old Linden celebration thing, but I think I read somewhere that it is back. But well, anyway, hopefully it will be. Right. Okay. Let's move over to my final guest today. It's Will Burns. I'm going to just refer to you as Will Burns, and you know why. Welcome again, Will.
Oh, that's fine. You can refer to me as Will.
Yes.
It's like a backup name, just in case. Just in case you can't say the other one.
Yeah, I know. Some of us need it, don't we? Believe me, you're not the only one I do this with.
Tara
testified a number of people whose names I can't possibly pronounce or remember.
Indeed, yes, I can confirm this.
That's fine. We'll just put the alternate name there for you.
Indeed.
So what's going on now?
Oh well, I'm doing this show. I'm meant to be asking you the question. Fine. I was going to say it's been a while since you've been on. So how's things going with you?
Things are going by good 90% well. I mean, other than the high fidelity stuff, but I'm leaving it as is for that kind of fiasco.
Yeah, I
was told to just leave that alone for now and see where they take it. So I'm letting them do what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that may be wise. From the point of view of listeners, I will tell them that Will actually wrote quite an extensive blog on some of that. I'm not techie enough really to understand. I memorize voxels. That's it. I wouldn't know a voxel from a vodka. I mean,
it's like doing polygons. Instead of doing polygons, it's just little atomistic kind of boxes, and they can.
A voxel sounds sort of like the combination of a vowel and a verb.
Yes. Well, the idea was that up in the graphics industry, anytime somebody who's bet on voxels usually loses because they have a crippling flaw. As is, which is to say that you can do something amazingly well with them and it looks amazingly photorealistic, but when you have too many unique items in a voxel system, the amount of memory shoots up astronomically and it becomes unfeasible to have like an entire virtual world to do it. But it's great for like medical imaging where you have like one object or many of one object because it doesn't require the extra memory. Well, that's kind of common knowledge in voxels. And when I read the high fidelity site, they're like, oh, we're betting on voxels, and the way they described it, what they think it can do versus what they said it is completely different. Like they're calling it sparse voxeloctree, and it won't do it. The only one that will do it that I know of is Euclidean, and I did double check it. The only real plausible explanation of how that works came from me. So the only way that they could have been jumping on that and actually had a basic understanding, because Bruce Dell is not telling anybody, would have been through me. And I got, and I'm kind of PO'd about that because they're just kind of back reading the stuff I was describing, like hybrid decentralized architectures and stuff like that. I'm like, you're just ripping me off. But I'm on the fence about it because on one side, I really do want to see the metaverse kind of, expand. I really want to see those advances. And on the other side, I am personally tied to military contractors and stuff like that who have NDAs and work with the Department of Defense and everything else. So a lot of those technologies that they're talking about might be stepping on their toes. And it's when I wrote the blog, it wasn't so much to say that, hey, I'm going to take you down. is more like a warning shot over Philip Rosedale's shoulder saying, you might not want to do this because you're not really dealing with me at this point.
I'm with you.
Just, I can't really talk about what it is, just giving them a warning saying you might not want to go there because I don't know what they're going to do about it if they decide to.
Yeah, and on a non-technical level, I mean, they're not really, High Fidelity aren't really releasing anything more than what I see as a sketchbook. I certainly
they're
don't
just doing
understand.
sketches really, which is why I'm not really getting on there, jumping their case too much about it. I want to see where they're going to go, but from their descriptions on their site, I kind of get an idea of where they want to go with it. But they're going to have to, they're going to be stepping on some toes if they did it, and I don't think they really realize that. So that was really what the blog was about. Was was PO'd about it, and yes, I was really livid about it. But more on the side of, I don't think he really knows what he would get himself into if he went and tried to take it wholesale. Because it wouldn't be dealing with me; he'd be dealing with some other people who have a very high vested interest in not letting him do that. So it was kind of like my little personal warning to say, you might want to do that. Talk to somebody. Be a decent person about it, and reach out and do what you got to do. Don't try to just sneak through the back door. So as far as High Fidelity goes, I kind of keep my mouth shut past what I've written.
Keep your peace and hope. It's like
saying,
everything else. We never know where it's going to go or who's going to ally with whom, and who's going to come into projects like that.
Unreal Engine.
Yes, indeed. At least I know a voxel is not a talking pixel, which is something.
They have a lot of. It has a lot of potential if you get past the memory limitations, and that's something that I kind of worked out about. Euclidean was how they would get past the memory limitation, and it's actually pretty ingenious the way they do it. They just don't. They don't really do anything in 3D. They're doing it in 2-dimension based on the amount of pixels on your screen. That's the only thing it needs to know. And then what it does is instead of loading the models in 3D and having to render it and calculate it, they're pulling only the pixels out of the model itself that it needs. Everything else it just wholesale disregards up front without having to load it.
So it's like a 2D map that somehow extrudes the 3D environment.
It's kind of like a search. It's a lot like a search engine where the model file or the point cloud is actually tagged. So if it says I need this part of the model to display, it knows before it even opens the file. It's running it as a search string. So it's only searching, pulling just the little bits out of that one file instead of loading the whole thing. And that's where they get their memory back, where they don't have to wipe out all the memory trying to display it all. So technically you're seeing everything in 2D, but because you can't tell what's behind the car or the wall, it doesn't matter to you.
This is actually quite fascinating. I mean, just forgetting the sort of details for a minute. I mean, I know Philip's history, before Second Life, had a great deal to do with compression. He really seems to be fascinated by the idea of compression. I mean, audio compression with Real Player, and he also told me, and I'd never realised this, he was behind a lot of the codes for fractal compression of images. Everybody was talking JPEGs and things, and he was working on fractal compression that brought images down to next to nothing, and you needed a special decoder to bring, literally.
Yeah, it's a procedural compression algorithm. It's really just storing storing the math problem, but not the actual result. The trade-off is always, the trade-off to that is going to be the inflation process of getting to the answer. So that takes a little bit of computation time.
Yeah. Okay, Oculus Rift.
Unreal.
Okay, no, Unreal. Yes, let's go with Unreal. Yeah, the Citadel, I think, is the name I've got it under as an app. But of course, it's the Unreal Engine is a very well-known graphics engine. Really, it's one of the better ones, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I will agree with that wholeheartedly. I love the Unreal Engine for what it does. It's a game engine, and the Citadel is a beautiful, demonstration of HTML5 and MCI script or so forth. WebGL, beautiful idea. And before you had gone to the topic, I had actually gotten that in my email saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I went, "Well," I said, on one hand, it's a beautiful games engine. It does amazing things. I am never going to down that. That's one side of the coin, and it will always be it's a beautiful advancement in gaming. I'm gung ho about that. On the other side, though, it's still a game engine, so it has a static quality about it, where you'd have to, in the same way Blue Mars was, where you'd have to pre-create all the content and then load it in statically. It's not really editing. So from a lot of people were saying, oh, this is going to be great for 3D virtual worlds and stuff like that. So gaming side, it'll be amazing, and I'm all about that. But when it comes to stuff like virtual sandboxes like SL and Cloud Party, it's not going to do much, because you'd have to figure out a way to do a toolbox that allow it to do real time. So you're going to get bumped down on graphics when you do that.
Yeah, this is actually the old argument. I've got real life friends on Facebook and things. Whenever I get around to looking at it, and they'll send me a little note. Are you still playing that game? And you can tell them 100 times, and they don't understand. But it's sure there's gaming technology behind it, but we're talking immersive spaces. That's what this show is all about. You can create, you can communicate, you can collaborate, you can express yourself. There's no beginning, middle, and end, or even junction points for a fixed storyline. It's if you want high-end graphics and a fixed storyline, fair enough. But if you want to have a platform that includes all this engagement as well, then and creativity, then it's really a totally different concept. So
a lot of it comes down to a lot of it that I've the argument that, or debate side that I've taken on this subject, is more along the lines of, if you I read a blog post, can't remember who, but it was just like the last couple of days, where they're saying native clients are no longer needed, and it's always going to be the future is all about in browser stuff. And I said, well, hold the phone there. I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm saying that at this point, even when when he pulled up like Unreal Engine and stuff like that in the browser, I say that's a great advancement. But when it comes to actual sandboxes and stuff like SL, whenever, you tend to take a downgrade. Those types of systems tend to be backwards, like maybe 4 or 5 years behind at times when you start throwing it into a web browser. And a lot of that comes down to, you really don't have much access to your native hardware. You can't really grab a lot of the stuff that a native viewer or a native browser could do, a native program, because you don't have direct access to it, and you can't code specifically for it. So you kind of get the Java, that Java mentality where, write once, compile everywhere, but it takes one hell of a hit by doing that. You're nerfing yourself.
Tell me, does this, Tara's mentioned this a few times, the forthcoming sort of dreaded pull the switch that's going to be happening with Second Life, where they're moving to server-side baking and stuff like that. We were talking about it the other day, but it may make the client-side operations lighter and enable it to work on more lightweight systems. But because a lot of the rendering and stuff like that, I think, is switched to server-side. Do you have an easy explanation on what's going on there?
It's more like, from my understanding, it would be more like a cloud-based collaboration on their side, server side. Good idea, yes, but because of the centralization of it all, I would expect them to be taking a hell of a bandwidth hit and a hell of a processing hit. I don't know if they've managed to work that out or not, or distribute it across the different servers. But when you get to the point where you're starting to lift the load for everybody else, on top of the fact that you have concurrency and all this other stuff going on, that's really bogging it down. Yeah. You're elevating your amount of your processing server side, and that's going to really add up pretty damn quick as far as
yeah, sure. Hang on a sec. This came up the other day, because it's we all know what Linden Labs servers are like, and they seem to be. Although this sounds like it could be good, they could also be inviting trouble.
Sounds like a great idea until you start hitting the 500 servers again.
If they don't work properly at the moment, how are they going to work with all this going on? But sorry, Safia.
I was going to say, we are actually doing a show on this, not next Monday's show, but the Monday after. We're doing a show on server-side baking and materials, the bringing in of materials viewer. And we have 4 Lindens on the show talking about it.
I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. If they can handle it, if the servers cannot get kicked in the crotch for it, then yeah. But I see a giant flood of bandwidth, and I see a giant flood of concurrency computation happening here, because you know that there's the concurrency thing about avatars is that every avatar has to send to the main server about what they're doing and interactions, and then that server then relays all that back to everybody else. Well, when you start adding more and more people, that one server starts taking a large load, and when you start adding the server side baking and all this other stuff to it, that's even more requests for everybody else that you're adding on top of it. So I see that in the long run as a way to really nerf the amount of concurrency, unless they have some really beefy hardware. So if they're going to brute force it, it'll work. I mean, I'm not saying it won't. I'm just saying it's going to be computationally and bandwidth and just straight out server intensive. They're going to be they're going to probably have to beef stuff up.
Maybe they've thought out some of their profits on doubling their server capacity or something behind the scenes and haven't let on yet. Wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking, right?
Thousands of new solid-state drives.
Yeah, they'd have to really push the top end of that to handle it all, because they're essentially, I mean, you take a look at the concurrency, and that was an issue a couple of years back where the servers were getting like 500 internal errors and everything and just crashing, or whatever the reason was. It was just everything was putzing out completely, and they had some serious issues. And I think if you add 3 or 4 more times the amount of data going back and forth for the servers to handle, yeah, it can do it, but you got to the way that things are stacked up over there, they're going to have to brute force it, and that's might not work in the long run. It might have create a failure point as the load doubles and triples and quadruples for computation.
I think it's just a case of fingers crossed. Nobody seems to know when they.
I think they're just knocking on wood at this point, going, "Please don't fail, please don't fail. Come on."
Yeah, because nobody knows when they're going to pull this switch. It could almost be any minute, from what I gather. All you can do is cross your fingers, touch wood, or all these other superstitious things.
I'm sure it'll work until they get high concurrency. High concurrency is probably going to be the stress test, and that's what I really want to see. Before I'm going to sound off on it definitively, I would say stress test it. Let me see 64,000 people in SL using it all at once and see how the servers handle it, if it handles it. I want to see how that stress test works.
Yeah. Well, they do say that Second Life is in permanent beta, really. So we are just going to have to suffer the consequences if us poor guinea pig avatars, yes, aren't we?
Yeah,
yes.
Just like all the stuff.
We are not avatars, we are guinea pigs for Linden Lab. Okay, wonderful.
Rift.
Yes. The other Tara mentioned she's had delivery of one too. What are your thoughts on Oculus Rift?
I think it's high resolution. I think the tracking is great. That was a great advancement. The head tracking and stuff down to whatever the number was. It doesn't cross my mind at the moment, but it was very high. So that is in itself a great advancement. However, as Tara was saying, it's they're going, oh, it's very lightweight, and I looked at the headset and went, no, it's not. no, it's not. And they went, oh no, it's just the next greatest thing. And they went. I kind of laughed when they said, used SL as the use case, to hold it up. They're like, this will be great for SL. And I said, no. Well, and I remember somebody over somewhere was like, well, you're just being biased. I said, no. I said, I can tell you right now probably what's going to happen. They're like, what? I'm like, well, they have ultra high graphics. It's going to be great until you do the one thing that I would expect it to fail at. And they go, well, what's that? And I said, well, what do places like SL and Skyrim and everything have in common? And they go, their games. And I went, well, no, they have text. They have a GUI.
Yeah.
And a lot of things have text where you need to read. And they go, I expect Oculus Rift to fail miserably at text. It'll do great on the graphics, but as soon as you get to the text, and lo and behold, a week later, I was reading a report where somebody was using it, one of the devs, and said, yep, pretty much I got to take the goggles off every time I want to read the screen.
Yeah.
And I said, there you go.
Yeah, the other piece of that I wondered about and continue to wonder about is, carrying on a conversation where you have to type. Anybody who's a two-fisted typer is in trouble. If you have to see the keyboard, if you're not a touch typer,
Yeah, that actually was my thought. In fact, I'll let on a little secret here. When Tara took delivery of hers during the week, she tried it on for me on webcam, and there was a pause for a few seconds when it came to rest on her head, as if, I think it was the weight. It must have been the weight. And I actually said, well, maybe horizontally, like you can try that. So she rested her head back on something and said, yeah, a bit better. But I've been watching. I think great strides are going to be made with the Leap device that's coming out, which of course can censor movements and looks very powerful. Far more so than the Kinect, for example. But I have heard that it, although it's very powerful in what it doesn't sense detailed things like finger movement. So it would be, even if you had an on-screen keyboard, it's very hard to imagine how you could. It might actually be difficult to type using the Kinect. And it's something that occurred to me. With this great new future, Lycra bodysuits, Durex's underwear, of course, and helmets and little sensors like the Kinect, and then there's the keyboard and the mouse and maybe the Face Navigator if we want it. How many things can we connect at once, without one of them obscuring the other one? At least when we're just with a mouse and a computer screen and a keyboard, we at least get to know we've got everything at our disposal. So, all these extra things seem to be huge leaps. But at the same time,
So to speak.
they're only good for one thing. They're technological leaps, but they may be unsuited to the overall task. And one thing that Tara mentioned that really surprised me is that you've got this great big helmet on your head, and it goes right round you, over your head, and in front of you and everything else. But is there any room for headphones left? It doesn't come with built-in headphones. And microphones, can you wear that helmet, for example, and wear a headset and a mic at the same time? Sounds like you would have great
difficulty. The closest thing that I've seen, personally, that would incorporate all that in a lightweight headset, it may not have the high-end aspect of the Oculus, but the Sensix headset is Sensix smart goggles is a full headset and has like the hand tracking and all that other stuff, all the good stuff built in. I don't know if that's as high resolution as Oculus, but it has all of that built in. So it has like the headphones and everything, and it's a full headset though. But they took care to make it as lightweight as possible through fabrication. So I haven't put one on yet, but it's balanced enough as far as I know from the developers. So it's not like hot, it's not like front heavy.
I would guess also that since this obviously is the dev kit, the weight of it that will be far more of a consideration when they actually get into whatever design fine tuning they do.
Right.
Before they do commercial release.
I would hope that they would balance the headset with something on the back, and then, maybe throw in some headphones or something. Because they seem like, from my point of view, they seem like they're really gung ho about the visual side.
Yeah,
and then they've kind of missed some of the more obvious use cases where this thing is going to need to excel as well. And I think Mal was right when he said, a lot of these technologies are coming out and they do one thing amazingly well, and they innovate one thing, and they totally lost the plot with everything else. And they kind of look up and they shrug and they go, what? What's wrong? And they go, you missed everything else. The other 90% that we really need.
It's interesting. It's interesting, here in Second Life, of course. I mean, Linden Labs, they have the dev kits, and they're intending to integrate the drivers or whatever they are for Oculus into Second Life. And they're also doing the same thing with Leap. They've been working with the Leap drivers for months, in much the same way they did with the Space Navigator, I guess, when it came out. They were fairly quick to grab all the necessary code and integrate it as input. But what on earth is the control panel in something like Second Life going to look like when you've got settings for an Oculus and settings for a Leap and all these inputs? The mind boggles. Yes, yeah, oh, of course, yes.
You'll read the settings first.
Yeah. Yes, they'll probably be in there.
Oh, text chat. Oh, text on the
Yeah,
screen.
Yeah, well, Leap is gonna hit sooner because it's about a month out from its first order
Shipping. Yeah.
shipping. So
Mm.
Oculus is is anybody's guess how far out that is.
I think Leap is okay. I mean, I got into a debate with somebody about this one. I think Leap is okay, but I don't think it's going to be a mouse killer. I think it's going to have its niche, but that's about the gist of it right there. Because it's the same thing as like having a PC where you got to reach out and touch the screen. I mean, over time, your arm gets tired. It's just a natural way to work in that environment.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good for like short term, but not for
like
long term.
It's like the iPad and sending to the big screen with AirPlay and stuff like that. I mean, I love it, but it's a down delivery to me. I mean, if I want to type or do that sort of thing, I'm over on the workstations. But I actually would tend. The reason I think I differ with you on Leap is because. Not only are they making it cheap and they're after ubiquity, as it were, but they have actually successfully got contracts with like Hewlett Packard, all HP computers, all Asus computers.
I understand that. And I look forward to seeing it built in.
Yeah.
I look forward to actually seeing it built in. What I'm saying is in a use case scenario, I'm not saying it's going to fail. I think it's going to do well, but in a niche kind of way. Like, you're not going to be using this thing to replace your mouse in midair. Yeah, it'll be good for like 3D modeling or manipulation or swiping or flapping your hands around. But in the same use case scenario as say the Microsoft Kinect, where they're trying to do swipe your hand to do in midair to change Netflix channels or whatever. That kind of failed miserably. People just said give me the damn remote.
Yeah,
after a while.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious. I'm curious.
So I'm curious to see if that will carry over to Leap, because it's the same sort of concept where you're swiping your hands and stuff in midair. Let's see if people are going to say screw it, give me the mouse.
I think it's Samsung who are going to be integrating into TV sets too. So but I've always thought that I kind of wonder if some manufacturer like a Samsung or even an Apple TV is going to come up with some kind of virtual interface, because you look at the menus on these TV interfaces and their boxes, they look like this disgusting Windows 8 thing, and you have to use a remote control and the arrow keys to sort of slide along and then press the icon for the thing you want. And I find that remote control option is really cumbersome. I used to have, in fact, it's the first way I ever got on the web, believe it or not, a Philips CDI machine, which must have been way back in the early 90s. And it was, at the time, Xbox wasn't around, or PlayStation, but there were a few other sort of advanced gaming entertainment consoles. And it came with a remote control that was actually very intuitive. It was like arrow keys, but it was a circular device, so you could go off at diagonals and stuff too. And all you did is you scrolled this around, and the mouse moved on the screen, and you could calibrate it. And swiping and moving things around was actually very intuitive, much more than the arrow keys on your average DVD remote or something. It just worked smoothly and at all angles. And it occurs to me that somebody like Samsung, LG, or that it could only be a matter of time before they say, well, look, let's make a virtual interface. In other words, you something simple, that looks like a basic sort of Second Life-y sort of environment, nothing that complex, where you simply navigate and press things to open them, and maybe walk forward from a video library into a web connection or something like that.
I think it'd be awesome to do that. I'm kind of, what it is my reservation about it is that the same sort of interfacing and interaction paradigm has been done a couple of times, and it got wholesale rejected because of glitchiness or because of the one-trick pony aspect. So I really, on one side of the coin, I really want something like Leap Motion to really, really work and be like the big breakout hit. But on the other side, I have to stay reserved and say, in the past it's been done, and people tend to gravitate towards away from it, outside of the niche stuff. So like the once in a while, like I need to like wave my hand to move stuff. That's great. It'll work.
Yeah.
People will be great like that. But for a good majority of stuff, they're still going to go to the physical kind of hands-on stuff that they're used to. And
I think
you see that with Windows 8, where people like had a totally had a meltdown about Windows 8 and touchchseen and all the other stuff. Yeah, they want their desktop. Don't mess with people.
Yeah, I know. We got used to it now. Don't mess.
25 years later.
Yeah.
25 years later, like yoink. No, we're taking the start. Yoink.
It's one thing to adopt, to adjust to a new piece of technology, a new piece of hardware that is a quantum improvement over what you could do before. And I'm thinking here of if you went back to the 80s when before the mouse arrived, and everything was keystroke commands, and then the mouse came along. And the first time you used a mouse, it felt really awkward.
Right.
For a day or two. But then once you'd made the adjustment, once your head had made the switch, you quickly figured out how much easier it was to choose a command from a menu using your mouse than it was to memorize all those keystroke commands.
That's Tara is mimicking my thoughts entirely. That was exactly what I was thinking when she came in. I mean, if something captures the public's imagination and always just suddenly becomes an essential utility, like the mouse, it didn't mean an end to the keyboard, but it enhanced so much. And yet it was so alien for people. People who are new to a computer, they looked at the mouse and what to do with that thing? It wasn't intuitive. But now everybody knows what a mouse is. Well, 99% of people, maybe except for the people who have purely come online through mobile. So I think these things, you never know what's going to capture the public's imagination. If they suddenly found a virtual interface was on their computer screens, on their tablets, and on their TVs, and something about it works, then there will always be the niche adopters, but there is a point where something niche, and you've got to consider the mouse was niche for a while in many ways.
Get past the niche audience, and it can actually have that staying power.
Yeah.
And I will give it 100% and say, go. I want it to work. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to transcend the prior issues with the same types of interfaces and moving your hands and stuff. I wanted to transcend that, but I still stay pragmatic in saying that it's got an uphill battle. I mean, as new and novel and great as it is, it's still got an uphill battle to get past it.
Don't forget, though, it's senior citizens that we're talking about here. All the kids, those 5 to 15-year-olds, they won't care about adopting something new. So I guess the industry wants to look at what will work for them too, because they are the flood. We're the experts at what we know, but the up and coming users, it's a whole different perspective. So
I was talking about demographic who, have you ever seen Facebook? We're talking about demographic who can't type or use grammar.
Yeah.
Really? You're going to give them that much credit? You're going to give them that much credit?
Although, funny you mentioned typing, Will, because that's one thing that I recall clearly back in the, I guess in the 80s or so, where there was a period of time where learning how to type became very passé. And then keyboards came along, and then as personal computers really took off, having basic, knowing how to 10-finger type suddenly changed dramatically as far as a useful skill is concerned.
Mavis Beacon teaches typing.
I
loved that program when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, in my day, it was manual typewriters. But
I used to have a manual typewriter. I love those things.
Yeah. It was the old pound on the keyboard.
I thought I died and went to heaven when the correction tape got built into the electric typewriters.
Yes, typewriters, and then the Selectric. Oh, the Selectric was such a world of improvement.
That whirling little ball of a type head there.
You couldn't jam up 16 keys all at once when you hit things too.
Yes, you could.
Too fast. typing too
Well, you
fast.
could, but it's sort of bit.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think the final word on Oculus Rift, interestingly, is that it's in it's the dev version, of course, that's being distributed at the moment, but it has become there are endless YouTube clips and features on this, and apparently the most viral of the YouTube clips is the one, I don't know whether you've seen it, where somebody gives his granny the Oculus Rift. She puts it on, and it seemed like he really had great difficulty getting her out of it. I mean, she was overawed. But I suppose maybe Granny was just taking in the visuals and didn't need to type at the time.
And that picture, that one with Granny and the Oculus. If you look at the still that goes with that YouTube clip, notice the angle of Granny's head.
Oh yeah,
because it puts paid to my instant observation of the weight of the darn thing.
That's why I suggested health insurance.
Yeah. Well,
maybe she had a very muscular neck.
Yeah, no. She clearly, you definitely get the impression that she's aware of the weight of it, but the visual impact is overpowering the whatever physical sensations the device is giving her.
Well, I look forward to hearing from you again, actually, Tara, when you've actually managed to get to all the driver installs or whatever is needed.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes, I want to hear from you too on that one, because having a hands-on, every time somebody says that thing is lightweight or whatever claims they make, I get this image of Ace Ventura doing the barrel roll on the friggin' car and flopping it in and going like a glove.
And
it's lighter, right?
And there's an element to this that I'm reminded that phrase of everything old is new again. Back in, I guess it could even have been the late 70s, certainly the early 80s. There's one of those, there was a place in the West End of London here that had all the arcade machines and everything else. And downstairs they had the virtual reality thing. Now, I never actually went on it. I don't think I did anyway. If I did, I can't remember. But it was for the people wearing, they put you in a seat, they put you in one of those helmets. And, it was fully immersive, and the kids loved it. I don't know, you got about 15 minutes on it for whatever you paid. But when I saw the Oculus Rift, I kept thinking, well, it's just the same as those arcade machines, It was probably a brilliant way to show off, virtual reality technology generally in its early days. Put the helmet on and be fully immersed. But, you're not going to walk down the street doing that.
There was an arcade nearby when I was younger that had that. And they ran a modified version of Doom and Wolfenstein 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember those VFX headsets back in the 90s, and then in the mid 80s I remember them as well. So I think everything is old is new. It is new again, but I think it kind of repeats itself. So I see like the web-based stuff popping up again. I'm like, oh, it's like VRML and Black Sun 3D, and they're like, no. I'm like, it pretty much is. I'm like, you're just kind of regurgitating, but at least you made an advancement this time. Kudos to you.
Well, there is another example if you want to go back even further in history. There was quite a bit of buzz in the late 50s and to the 60s about about telephones with video capacity.
Yeah.
And there was great conversation. There was great talk about it, and it absolutely flopped because people weren't ready for having. And the arguments against it were, it means you have to comb your hair, it means you have to put clothes on to answer the phone, and all those sorts of very legitimate arguments. But look at us now.
And yet here we are on Skype
with webcams.
Yeah, and
I think the technology had to catch up, is what it is.
Yeah,
because early technology is huge, and you got to miniaturize it and get it, where it's handheld type of thing, where it's ubiquitous.
I'm sorry, but I still strenuously resist a webcam.
Mine.
I think it's very true, because Sophie, you probably remember this. About 20 years ago, BT introduced a whole line of video phones. That just worked on copper wire. They did not take off. The fact that they were made by BT probably didn't help. But they were black and white, and they're pretty. But nobody really used them. Maybe a few conferences, but that was it.
They were long sort of seen as the thing that could happen in the future. Interestingly, there's a great novel written in the 1930s called Coal Comfort Farm,
I've heard of that, I think.
And it is meant to be set in a slightly futuristic time. And they have, at one point, Flora Post, the heroine, goes to make a telephone call to someone, and she has to use a public kiosk. And therefore she hasn't got a video screen, because it's just, well, it's not called a video screen, it's called something else. But the person who's talking to her can see her because they have got a screen. And she was trying to set it slightly in the future, so it was something they were expecting to come then, very soon. It's interesting.
I think it's
actually taken 70 years, you know.
Yeah, it's been a lot of science fiction, and actually the one in a completely different way, of course, it was in George Orwell's 1984.
Yeah.
You know, and we're actually, you know, well, I've got a camera positioned above the screen here now, and, you know, for all I know, you know, that well, it's not lit up, so I don't think it is tapping it, but I mean, technically, you know, that's, you know, total two-way surveillance is possible. So it's I think one of the criticisms I've heard of virtual worlds, especially fully immersive ones like Second Life, is people are scared of them. In terms of when we talk about capturing the public's imagination, there are a lot of people who, the moment they log in and they realize there's a real people around them, and that they are in a public place and they've got to deal with real people, get very scared at the idea that, you know, they can do this, and they just want to log out. They don't want to be in that crowd. They log out because it's not the scariness of the immersion of something like Citadel, where you're just exploring something and it's fascinating, but the scariness comes because they realize there are other real people next to them.
Wait,
and
are you implying you're a real person? When was I not informed of this?
Yeah.
We're all real people? Oh, man.
Yeah. It's almost as though those of us that use things like Second Life, where it's both for work, for entertainment, and for, you know, an extension of oneself, it's almost as though those of us that have adopted have got some kind of ability to just accept that immersion and, you know, and that connection you make with other people, whereas some other people just are very frightened of, you know, it's a step too far in one go, so to speak.
Well,
okay.
Mel, I can give you an example from my own Inworld experience early on, and again, this is coming from an introvert who is fully socialized and perfectly capable of behaving like an extrovert when situations call for it. But I recall on some occasion, fairly early in my Second Life poking around, that I ended up in a dance place, and there really wasn't anybody there, but there was music going on, and this guy wandered in and asked me to dance, and I did for a little while, but I felt really uncomfortable, and it was like the level of contact with my avatar was more than I would have been comfortable with if I was in an RL location where there was dancing going on. It was kind of like, oh, he's moving way too fast for my taste. You know, for my comfort level.
It's very,
it's like
very
this.
intimate.
Yeah, and I recall that I bowed out and left, fairly quickly, because I didn't want him to get any ideas. Because it was like, no, this is just happening too fast. So I think I would guess that everybody coming into a virtual environment goes through some kind of an adjustment phase in how process as far as how they deal with other avatars.
Safir, you heard that?
There was a very interesting story about an early immersive environment, Lambda Mu, which some people may have heard of.
Yeah,
which was a text-based virtual environment back in the day, and there's a very interesting article about this. There was a guy who was actually gay, and who was, and I guess I put this in inverted commas, wearing a pink triangle as part as part of his clothing, which meant that basically whenever anyone came close to him, he would post a description of himself and what he looked like, and the fact he was wearing a pink triangle. And he was the writer of the article, and he said that one day a chap came up to him and said, "Why are you wearing a pink triangle?" And he said, "Well, it's because I'm gay." And it was worn it was what the symbol that the Nazis made homosexuals wear in the forced labour camps, the extermination camps, and it's now seen as a sort of badge of pride. And so he was explaining all of this, and the guy was sort of asking him and saying, "Oh, so you are gay then?" "Oh, yes." And they carried on the conversation. He was asking him, and he seemed genuinely curious about the whole nature of being homosexual. And the guy was happy to respond and explain things to him. And after a bit, he felt that, they were standing on the front steps of the, I don't know what it was, the university building in Lambda. It's a very public place where everyone kind of goes in and out. And he suggested that perhaps they go into what would be a private chat room, but a private room there. And there was no kind of come on or any suggestion of that. And but the other guy reacted, no, I'd rather not do that. No, I would rather not do that. And he said only then did he have kind of this weird sensation how strange it was, because there was no suggestion that anything could happen, because they were sitting at different computers in different rooms in different parts of the world. It wasn't as though by inviting him in there, he was inviting him into an intimate situation that couldn't be escaped.
Yeah.
But the conversation had gone so far, and the connection that had been built up was so powerful that his suggestion they move into a private chat room became an issue, became a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I mean, that must, when you look at something like Second Life, the environment is so more compelling. It's I can understand why people have found a way, in the sense that I can also understand people who do come in here for a few months and actually get over the learning curve to come in here, and then just get themselves into such complex relationships that they have to get out. It's one thing taking the dive, which some people aren't willing to do, but having taken the dive, it's also a matter of, it's to do with yourself, being able to take that second self and be at terms with it, not get into the kind of messes you might get into if you wouldn't get into them in real life, don't get into them in Second Life. It's a funny thing, but I think wrapping up the tech talk here,
that's an excellent mantra to have. If you never get into it in real life, don't do it in Second Life.
That's the truth.
So
that's how you that's how you avoid drama at all costs.
The crucial wrap-up question here that I have to ask all of you while we're on the technology subject is, who is going to run out and buy some Thunderwear?
I can start an Indiegogo site and do a crowdsource funding so people can buy me one. crowdsource get Aonix some Funderwear. It'll be a good Kickstarter campaign.
It's not at all like the Leap device, but I have to say, I've got a feeling, Durex the name, and everybody knows. It is an experiment so far, but I mean, if that came to market, I've got a feeling it could well be very popular.
I guess everybody who likes Zinder will rush out and get some.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, if the site has their real world counterpart stuff going on, then sure.
Yeah.
That's the type of target audience that they're going for. So
yeah.
It'll come politely packaged with no logos or return addresses.
I was just going to say, plain brown wrapper in a
plain brown wrapper,
and an innocuous looking return address.
I mean, I have a feeling that it's cheap enough. You know, it will be in Ann Summers, which is a shop on the high street in the UK where you can get
very tacky shop on the high street.
Yeah, you know, it's tarted up to look a bit nicer than it did when it was only in Soho. But let's just say it's. But they get customers.
But
and,
what about the chances of electrical shocks and things like that?
Well,
well, in some cases that might be favorable, depending on who's wearing it.
Well, that's
that could be part of the attraction.
Yeah, well, the electric, the electric shot trigger something else. I mean, yeah. As I said,
don't go there, Mel.
Yeah, I wouldn't. So as a male, walk down the street in a pair. That's for sure. They won't replace the swimming trunks.
You would be reenacting the Ministry of Silly Walks if you did.
Yes, exactly.
It seems to me a bit, kind of boys' toys.
Oh, girls too.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to return it.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. And how does it fare? It will have to be a heavy-duty washable item, I think, as well. Come to think of it. Anyway,
you can't just throw it in the dishwasher. It's going to require the heavy load cycle. Depends on how much you use it, though.
Well, we've done our public duty and we've introduced some new
Don't need no starch.
I think this show needs to be labeled not.
This is no longer PG.
NSFW.
Poor Mal, he's still trying to work here. Come on.
Yeah, we have introduced this week's new technology, folks. So we'll leave it to you on that front. I never did get an individual answer from everybody as to whether they buy it, so I don't think I'm going to go.
I'm not going to buy any.
I'll wait until it's like shockproof.
There will be a lot of people who buy it who won't admit to buying it, as is normal with these things. Anyway, this has been a thoroughly engaging show. Great discussion, but I think it's about time we sort of started wrapping up. So let's start with Sapphire. Anything else on the agenda that's occurred to you while we've been on air? Or,
no, I think I've probably covered everything I need to. Just watch Designing Worlds tomorrow. It's going to be a lovely chance to see Fantasy Fair again.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, wonderful. Pet Love.
No, just make sure you go to Raglan. Make sure you're ready for SL10B. Go to UWA and go to the LEA Sims. Support art and Second Life. That's what I would like to say.
I have a couple on destination front. I've got a couple of things here in the feeds that looked quite good, but I haven't been there. I can't do. There's a recreation of Badger, California, just come online, which I don't know which blogger offhand recommended it. There is there's been, I don't think it's open yet, but there's a build called Water and Dryland, which is getting a fair bit of attention. And I know the one. There is, starting today, another sort of fair, I guess, but it's not called fair. It's just called We Love Roleplay. And it's a sort of, I think it's only open for a week, but basically it's one of these fairs where lots of vendors all get together. And, they sell the various things you can use for role play. And I should stress that this tends to be interesting because it goes over and beyond the idea of getting guns that you role play to kill people or whatever. It's costuming for role play environments. And often these kind of places are where I find really useful heads-up displays that do particular things. Often, you will find something that is being sold for, a shoot-'em-up role-play sim that, you want, not for that, but because it's got a really useful different function. So I tend to pop along to We Love Roleplay sometime in the course of the week. So that's one other event of the week. May's LEA Full Sim is something called Mentality, written by Victoria Lenoir, which I gather is worth checking out too. So that's some other places. I take it none of you here have been to any of those, know anything more on them?
No,
but I'll check them out.
Get right over there.
All right. Okay, so Will, anything coming up on your agenda that you want to share with us? Exciting events, exciting places.
God. Exciting agenda. Well, unfortunately, I've been NDA'd on most of it now, as of like 2 days ago. However, I will be kind enough to say the beetle on my shoulder is from Bryn O's Immersiva, and I would like to, on the art side, if you haven't been over there yet to see Imogen and Pigeons, I would definitely highly recommend going over there in groups. Definitely get over there and check it out. And remember that the feathers let you walk on walls and stuff. Definitely go over there and check it out before she goes on to the next one.
Yeah, forever changing. In fact, I think we have a long clip actually, which may not have time to run today, called, where is it? I think it's called Follow, which I'm pretty sure was Bruno. It's a very...
what else reminds me?
Oh, no,
sorry.
Sorry, it's called Standby.
Standby, yes. I was going to say, in about a week she's going to do a blog post with that.
Yeah, it's the clip is 40 minutes long, so if I show it, it will be at the end of the show. But it's a great clip.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, if you haven't been over there yet, spread the word, get people over there, show some support.
What's it called again, Will?
Immersiva. I'll put it in chat here.
Yeah, great stuff.
There you go. Definitely get over there and show her some love and show her that this is really something of interest. Also, too, I was over there with a group yesterday, and they're going through the store that she has. If you click on the bunny, the rabbit poster that's at the beginning, it'll take you to her store. And I said, as far as I'm aware of, all the proceeds she gets from the store from selling those things go right to keeping the sim going, so she can keep doing installations. So show some support.
Right.
Very good.
Good.
Some great artwork in there that she's put in there recently. There's a statue she just put in there of her rabbit avatar, which she gave me for Christmas last year, and it showed up in there now, and a couple of other things for the rabbit corn and the standby is now in there. So definitely, before she moves on to the next one, get everybody over there and go play, spread the word.
Awesome.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely one of those creators in Second Life who you have to visit regularly. Lest you miss what went before, kind of thing. Well, that's great. So I think it's time to go back to Tara for what we call a roundup and comments on things.
Yeah, just a couple things on my agenda for this week. For starters, I definitely want to get back and do part 2 of the Fantasy Fair hunt. I managed to get in and do part 1, so looking forward to doing part 2. And obviously I have this Oculus device that is sort of humming at me over here that wants me to plug it in and figure out how to make it work. That's going to keep me out of mischief this week.
Indeed.
Especially
Or
since
the opposite.
Don't forget to feed the pussycat, sir.
Oh yes. Well, and the great outdoors does call. So while this weather lasts.
Okay.
Final thoughts. Funderwear is not dishwasher safe.
You just looked that up, did you?
We're talking about clothes washers, not dishwashers. Well, never mind. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to see if I can catch a free pair of underwear pants. Yes.
You are.
Mal, you are brave. Thank you. You can let us know.
If they are, I said catch a free pair. They're an experiment.
If you get those on you have to give us the link to control them and then do a live cast.
Oh god, yeah.
That'll be like live cast for charity.
I'm
That'll be
not
awesome.
streaming that day. I refuse.
Do it for Relay for Life, man. Relay for Life. Funderwear for life.
Maybe they'll donate a pair and I can use it on Relay for Life. But I'll try anything once.
The greatest fundraiser ever.
Might as well make it pay off, Mal.
I'm up for anything.
Okay, I'll stream it. Okay.
Okay, folks, before we collapse into total depravity or whatever, I'm going to wrap the show. I have to wrap the show at this point, don't I? It's been a wonderful discussion. Thanks always to Tara. Thanks to Sapphire Woodchins as always. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Pet Love, as ever. Wonderful camera person. totally dedicated, overworks herself to the extreme, and still finds time to chat with us.
My pleasure now.
And special thanks to Will Burns, who we haven't seen for a while, but has made up for it by keeping us wholly engaged on the technological front. So thank you, Will.
It was a pleasure being on the show again.
And this is where I say it's a wrap, folks. Do stay tuned if you're watching this live. We'll be just handing over back to the Week in Review and showing lots of... we actually have... so many good clips this week. It's going to be potluck what we get to show this week and what hangs over to next week, unless of course we post a little midweek review sort of extra program or something. So as I say, some great stuff coming up. We also have Pet Love mentioned earlier her partner Emo, who helps her with the tiny adventures and stuff. We also have a clip from him which features the tinies in the sequence too, so plug for Emo there. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to turn to my screen in the background here and tell somebody that they can cut. Goodbye for now.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.